Okay, so we are on standard 4.7, okay? Has everybody got their notes open to that section? Yep, get your notes open to that section. Thank you. Any assignments? I'm taking those. I'm going to grade them all here in a little bit.
Oh, and you never checked my vocab. I was here.
Oh, you weren't here. I'll get it. What page is it on?
And did you?
It don't say, but it
doesn't say.
It don't have a page.
It's after page 7. But
After
then
page
again,
7.
7's like in the middle of
Because
the
they're
book.
all kind of talking
And
around.
the page after it is 81. So
I'll let you figure the rest.
yeah.
Yep.
It's in between page 7 and page 81.
So I gotta redo all of them?
Just the one, yeah, the one you got wrong.
Huh?
And then we do after what?
The page we on is between 7 and 81. Like they're not in order. It's 7 to 81.
Language. In the context you were using it in, it was. Okay, so is everybody finding it?
Hey, I thought feces was food.
It is.
I'm not that a body fluid or whatever.
It's a body fluid.
Is that how you stay on top of it? Is that how you stay on top of it?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I just wrote it down.
What page?
So,
It's between 7 and 81. Like it's literally the page between the.
What color?
You don't have many options.
I'm using the yellow.
so you're going to learn all about transferring patients, and if you could believe it, today we're going to do the skills of ambulating patients.
Here's how
That's
I.
number 3.
So safety precautions. When we have our wheelchairs and our geriatric chairs, you need to make sure the wheels are locked, the bed is locked before you get the patient out. The patient has shoes or socks on that are gripper socks, right? Make sure the patient can stand and has good balance. If they have foot plates on them, which my wheelchairs don't anymore because they just get in the way, either take them off or move them out of your way. They can tear the resident's skin, so you're going to want to watch those. If they have tubing or you put blankets on them, don't run those over, right? We got to make sure those are secured somewhere on the chair so that they're not being pulled out of the patient or pulled off of the patient. Some maneuverability things. If you go onto an elevator with a wheelchair, you go on backwards. In the hallways, you travel on the right side of the road, right? Like you're driving a car. The other people coming at you should be on the left. The big mirrors that are in the hallway are so that you can see if someone's coming around the corner before you just push your patient out in the corner. Did you guys know that those mirrors are for that?
Miss Roselle, I gotta tell you a secret. Well, it's not really a secret.
Okay.
But I kind of ran a patient into a wall at the nursing home.
What?
When we
That's a
did
little
adopt a
dangerous.
grandparent,
Yeah,
Okay.
she just looked at me. I
We
was like,
should slow down at corners because, like I said, you could collide in with somebody. And then every wheelchair or every resident has their own wheelchair. So make sure they're in the right wheelchair. There's small ones, there's big ones, there's long ones, there's short ones, taller and shorter. Make sure you've got the right ones. We always push. We don't really pull unless we're getting onto an elevator. You always lock everything. Don't stand on the foot plates of a wheelchair because the thing's going to tip forward on you. If there's armrests on the wheelchair, you can move those so that you can move the patient easier. So these are just things to kind of keep in mind when you're transferring your patient. These are mechanical lifts. We don't have any of these lifts at the school, but we will train them when we go to the nursing home. So we will practice with the lifts. They basically have this netting that goes up underneath the patient. You hook it to some hooks. You mechanically lift it up. When I was in school, we used to have to crank them. It was an old crank one. Now it's electronic. You just push a button and they rise up in the air. So some safety things, we always put the sling underneath the patient. The butt is the thing that needs to be inside of the sling. You always make sure that you hook them the way they're supposed to be, and that's per the manufacturer. You'll be trained on it when you get to that facility. And then we raise them up And then 2 people kind of just push them over to where they need to be. So we use lifts because our patients can't stand and it's too much weight for us to have to do on our own. So we try and use the lift so that we don't hurt our backs. There's a manual lift and a hydraulic lift or an electronic lift. Most facilities now have the electronics because they're just easier to maintain. And then whenever we're using a lift, you have to be trained in it first, so don't just start using lifts that you assume you know how to use. You have to be trained. Make sure it works, make sure all the slings and stuff don't have holes and they're not ripped so your patient doesn't fall. Make sure you lock it, make sure you know where the emergency brake are. There's the electronic ones. I can remember a time me and another girl were getting them up and the battery died when we had them up in the air. How do we get that patient down? Out of the air.
How did you do it?
They're literally up in the air and we're trying to put them into a wheelchair. How do we get them out?
Lift him.
Just leave them.
Well, there is an emergency release on the machine so that it would come down. So we had to hit the emergency release. It's a slowly put them down. But the emergency release, we had to know where that was. So you have to know how to operate the machines to get to the emergency release. There has also been Hoyer lifts. They're called Hoyer lifts. There's also been lifts. There's a limit of weight that can be put on these. And that some of them are for smaller and some of them are for bigger. Someone grabbed the wrong lift one time. It was for a heavier person. They had the smaller lift. They thought it would hold the weight. And the machine broke, like the patient came crashing to the ground. So you have to make sure that you have the correct machine for the patient. Huh?
They look the same.
They look the same, but you read
But
how
the
much weight can
limit
be on
is
it.
different.
The weight limit that they can hold is different, so you have to keep an eye on that. If I put you up in the air into a lift and started swinging you around and you had no control, would you be a little scared?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the big thing you need to do with your resident?
Reassure them.
Reassure them, tell them it's going to be okay, that you know what you're doing, that we're just moving from the bed to the chair, it'll be real quick, right? Because they get a little nervous in those lifts. Crutches. Big thing about crutches is you could have to explain to a patient how to use them. Do all of you know how to use crutches?
No.
So crutches, right? The rubber part goes up underneath your armpits. And then you put your weight on them depending on how much weight you can put on which leg or both
Which
legs.
shows that it cuts off after that last page. The rest of it isn't on here.
It cuts off because it's not like, you don't have to know all that stuff, but
Oh.
you shouldn't. But the lift is the big thing. Canes is a big thing. They can have 2 or 1 or 4 legs on them, and I've got examples. And then walkers, right? We have some walkers. You do have to learn how to use a walker. So same thing with that. You need to lock them. Make sure that they're not rolling away from your patient when you get them up. They always have to have their shoes on before we get them up, or socks. If a resident has a weak side, there's a reason they have a cane or a walker. We assist them on their weak side. That is a key point. They pulled that out last year and put that as a state test. What side would you walk on if they had a cane or a walker? And it would be their weak side.
Wait, what side?
Weak side if they have a cane or a walker. So the side that the cane or the walker is on is the side you should be standing on.
What did you say now? What side? What?
Side that the
If
cane,
Yeah, basically assist them on the weaker side.
system on the weaker side.
If they have a cane.
System on the weak side. Same thing. We're gonna learn how to put our gait belts on again, right? We put our gait belts on so that our patients don't fall, so that we can have some stability of them. You're gonna learn how to put them on again this year. And you should be able to put 2 fingers, if not your whole hand, up around that gait belt so that you can grab on it, because you don't want them too tight. And then your hands go up on top of you. Or push off the bed, either way. So there's different kinds of canes. I've got those in the closet. We'll look at them. Walkers are the same thing. They have wheels or no wheels. We're going to look at those too. And then we're going to do the skills transferring from a bed, transferring from the wheelchair, and we're going to walk from the bed to a wheelchair, and we're going to walk with a walker as well. And I also want to show you restraints just because you should know how to do the tie. So today, there's technically 5 skills today. We're probably not going to have time for all 5, so I'm going to show you restraints just so that you can all see it. And if you want to practice the tie, you can. And then I'm going to do ambulating with a gait belt to the wheelchair, and then ambulating with a gait belt to, or with the walker. Okay? So if any of you have your
Okay, I have a question.
your white books. Yes, ma'am.
So when you're done.
Oh, the white books, right? I don't know, they've changed them up so much, I'd have to look in that actual book and see what numbers they are, but I will pull them out, and I have a folder I'll show you guys too. And you need, when I'm going to show you the skill, you need to practice it at least twice before I will check you off. And I'm going to get your folders out, and I'm going to show you all about your folders too.
Wait, which word is it?
Okay? So we're going to do